You're watching the Katrina Merriweather Show, presented by Chick-Fil-A.
The Memphis Tigers started February on fire, winning 4 straight games. Today, we'll hear from sharpshooter Madison Griggs and give you a conference tournament preview. It's the Katrina Merriweather Show, tipping off right now.
I had learned very quickly what it means to be a midfielder.
The Katrina Merriweather Show is presented by Chick-fil-A. We didn't invent the chicken, just the chicken sandwich. And by Simmons Bank, the official sponsor of women's athletics.
What a year the Memphis women are having. Hi everybody, I'm Dave Woloshin.
And I'm Tyler Springs. Let's take a look at some of their recent highlights. Memphis on the road at Tulsa. Jamira Shoots checking in the second quarter, answering the bell. Tigers looking to rally out of a 9-point hole early. Madison Griggs chips in. That's 2 of the Tigers' standout guards. And here comes the third. Imani Jefferson to the rack. What an attack. Memphis rallies to go up 1 at the break. Freshman Destiny Thomas adds her 2 cents on the inside here. Tigers got on a roll in that third quarter. Madison Griggs from downtown, part of a 29-7 run. And the last one looked like this. Bang! Griggs enters the 1,000-point club, and the Tigers win their 4th in a row. They would come home to take on Cincinnati Bearcats, final time facing Katrina Merriweather's alma mater as a league opponent, and they kept the heat on all night. Madison Griggs showed off a diversified shooting portfolio. She's the outstanding performer this week, hitting 5 trays across 2 contests. She had 12 in this one against the Bearcats. Jamira Shoots also had lofty goals. She finishes with 13, but you could argue the night belonged to a pair of former Wright State Raiders. Imani Jefferson tallied 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and look at this, a game-high 14 points. Her teammate at 2 different schools, Jada Wright, found room to operate on the inside as well. Wright had 6 against Cincinnati, giving her 16 points across the Tigers' last 2 contests. Memphis pulls away late, winning by 11. Their 5-game win streak has boosted them up to 3rd in the American Athletic Conference standings, as high as they've been under Katrina Merriweather.
Wow, since we last talked, you've had a streak where you won 4 in a row. The only loss you had there was South Florida in a great game against a really good team. This may be the most productive moment of your tenure. Is that true?
I would completely agree with that. But it just helps when you have really good players. They make big plays and they're playing for each other right now.
You take that South Florida game in stride because it's a really good team. It seemed like you played them fairly tight all the way through and you just couldn't quite get over the hump. Did you have any kind of conversation with the team after that game to say, hey, look at what we did. We were right within arm's length the entire time. You know, we can still do more.
I think so. Like, South Florida is a mile marker for everyone, you know, in the success that they have had, in the length of time that they've had such great success. So, of course, you look at that game and you want possessions back, you know, when games are that close. And so we go back, we watch the same stuff. We're going to watch the offensive rebounds that we give up. We're going to watch turnovers. We're going to watch when we don't execute well. And then at the end of that, you know, our video coordinator, Mikhail, puts together a highlight tape. And so our process is pretty much the same. We're going to focus on certain things. And when you go back and watch that game, it's just those moments where you're just one more rebound, you know, one more big box out. And I think that it made us better having played them over the next few games.
For me, some of your mental toughness. 2 games that come to mind. One, the UCF game overtime, which was one of the uglier games yet. Somehow you prevailed, and then the incredible comeback at Houston against a Houston team that had beat South Florida.
Right. For
you to win those 2 games the way you won them says something about the character, I think, of your ball.
I agree with you, and I agree that it's mental toughness. For me, it's mental anguish, because there's these moments, you know, where we're missing layups and I mean, we've gotten all these offensive rebounds and we just can't get the ball back in the basket, you know, and I watch our kids and they get deflated, you know, in those moments. But to your point, you watch them come together, you watch them huddle, you know, and you listen to them on the bench and you know that they're saying all the right things. And that's not something that happens in the beginning of the season. That's their maturation, you know, and their chemistry, the way that they've come together and said, hey, we don't point fingers anymore. We just pick each other up, lift each other up, and I think that's the root of their mental toughness, is they're really, really playing for each other and sticking together.
You look at two other games which have been very important, road wins at Tulsa and at Wichita State, two very different types of teams. How do those things show your team their own mettle? Because I think those are games that not every team in this league goes on the road and gets.
Well, those teams are really good, and they have really good players. And I think that when people just have players, like we have a couple too, that can just take over the game, that's our team being locked into a game plan and believing that it's 40 minutes long, and really convincing them that we're not going to shut out people. They're going to score points, but it's how tough can we make those baskets? How disciplined can we be boxing out and getting the rebound, allowing them just one shot? And in particular, Wichita State, that was a really big deal because their kid Asende, has the ability to get double doubles and just take a game over. And I think our post players were really good in that game defensively, and a lot of their stats don't show up in a box score, but what they're able to do for our team down there, neutralizing other posts and rebounding and finishing is one of the reasons why we've been so good.
When you first came here, you talked about obviously having to change this culture to bring what you had established at Wright State here. Now this great stretch, is it fair to say you've changed the culture, that the buy-in is now there?
It's funny that you say that it's been changed. I thought that we had made some strides in the beginning of the year, and then some things let me know that we were not where we needed to be. And I tell the team all the time, it's in my personality that when I see people turning the corner, I jump across the street. And so sometimes I just have to relax, and not get too carried away. But I did share with them after our last win that we're in a space now where I think we're crossing the street together. And they've done more than just turn the corner a little bit. So yeah, I think so. I think that we're in a space where our culture is growing. I'm not prepared to say that it's necessarily changed or completely built. We will see, after these next few games, because we were in a position last year, where postseason was within our reach. And we fumbled some games and it didn't happen. And so we have to make sure we're not being complacent. So I'll let you know at the end of the year how that goes.
How important are the contributions you're getting from younger players? Destiny Thomas, Hannah Riddick, Danielle Welch, they're all taking on larger minute roles, and they've played in wins that have been huge to your success.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge analytics person, but when you look at the plus minus and when Destiny Thomas is in the game, and whether or not she's scoring a bunch or even getting a bunch of rebounds is irrelevant. What she does and just being there in that space and how much attention that she draws because of her ability and her size, it really just helps all the other players on the floor. Hannah's energy has not wavered one bit. I do think that teams are paying more attention to her now, so it's a little tougher, for her to sneak up on people. I think she's on the scouting report. People are preparing for her, but that still doesn't stop her. Doesn't stop her from getting key rebounds, from defending, from getting 50-50 balls, throwing her body on the ground. And Danielle, we're just trying to do a great job of putting her in positions where she's comfortable. You'll see us run some plays to her out of timeouts, and she knocks down huge shots. And it's just nice. It's nice to be able to sub and rest Jamira and Maddie and Imani, and then put in players. And sometimes we don't lose a thing.
Memphis native Madison Griggs came in highly touted as a freshman, and 3 years later, she's still breaking the mold. We'll talk to the program's all-time greatest shooter next.
You're watching the Katrina Merriweather Show, presented by Chick-Fil-A.
Welcome back to the Katrina Merriweather Show. Memphis guard Madison Griggs blew up the American Athletic Conference as a freshman, and for the last 3 years, she's carried a bullseye on her back. But her love for the game is what's kept her on target.
Maddie, we're going to go back in time and talk about how you started as a basketball player, but I just want to know, did that young girl ever dream you'd be the most prolific three-point shooter in the history of the school and a 1,000-point scorer at the collegiate level?
When I was younger, I knew I could shoot the ball really, really well, but I never imagined that I would break any records or just achieve all of these achievements that I have in college. I figured I probably would score 1,000 points because I can score the ball really well, but I never dreamed of breaking any kind of three-point records, no.
Who was the first person to put a ball in your hand?
It's a lot of different couple people. My father, my stepdad, my grandma. It's a lot of people that, introduced me into basketball. I grew up playing outside, so it could have been my neighborhood friends. It was just a lot of people that contributed from me starting basketball, and I never can really say who exactly, but I just thank everybody that did put a basketball in my hands.
For you, what was it like meeting Helen Darling and having her say, hey, I want you to play on my team?
It was pretty cool. At the time, I didn't know who she was. I was little, but I just knew she had a team and wanted me to play for them. But I didn't realize who she was until I got a little older. And I used to go to her house and see all her pictures when she played. I'd be like, she really did play for real, And it was just a blessing to realize that, I was recruited by a really good basketball player in WNBA. So it was really special once I got older and realized who she actually was.
You played in a pretty high-powered high school team. Do you remember what it was like playing in front of a lot of people with some high expectations on you?
It prepared me for the collegiate level because we used to go to state every single year and the stadium would be packed out. It just prepared me to, stay who I am and keep playing the way I am, no matter who's watching, no matter how many people are there, and just focus on what you can do best.
And then the recruiting process. So what was that like for you, and what was it that sold you on staying home?
The recruiting process, I just really went with, I felt who was giving me the most and the best energy, team-wise, coaches-wise, who showed the most interest, who called me the most, make sure I was okay and cared for me the most. And fortunately, it was Jess at Memphis, so, and the rest of the staff, so. That's what really made me stay home, and the team was pretty decent, and I knew I could be with my family, so that was a big, huge decision for me to stay home so I can be closer to my family.
You had a pretty wild freshman year. Talk about what the ups and downs were like for that first year.
It was very different for me because I have been starting my whole life, and I, come to the collegiate level, started to come off the bench, and that was fine, but it was just something I had to get used to. And it made me realize that I had to get my defense better in order to stay on the court longer. And that's all I've been working on since then, but it just helped me a lot to actually have to be on the court and play and get experience. So it was a lot of ups and downs, but it all worked out.
What were your expectations for this year, and how has it gone up to this point, especially the run you've been on in the last month or so?
It was very much expected. Success was expected, adversity was expected, but we still have that end mind goal of a championship. So nothing else really matters, and we all focus on that. We don't focus on anything else but coming in here and trying to win and win the championship.
You scored 1,000 points in your career. You're the all-time leading three-point shooter in women's history. It's nice to be remembered at all, but for you, how do you want to be remembered?
I really just want to be remembered as a great person, that fortunately had a lot of success. I want to be remembered for my name and how I made the culture and how I made, people feel when they came to the games, how I made the young kids feel when they see me, when they could hug me, when they could get an autograph, It just makes me feel good that lets me know that I make other people feel good and people look up to me, it motivates me and keeps me going because I know that people are looking up to me. So I just want to be remembered for me and for what I did and for how I made people feel. And that's probably most important to me.
You mentioned earlier you've got two really good players. One of those is Madison Griggs. Did you envision that she would be this good when you first got here?
Yeah, I think so. When we first got here, Maddie and I had a lot of conversations about what she wanted the team, from the team, what she wanted for herself. When I walked in the gym, randomly she would be in here shooting or had just gotten finished or after practice, before practice. She's just very committed to being the best shooter that she can be, and she puts in the hours, so there's just no surprise there.
You don't typically coach a style that has space for a tremendous three-point shooter. Does this change your mind at all if you had 2, 3, 4 Maddies out there the way you'd coach?
If there were 4 Maddies out there, I'd try to get all 4 of them. I'm not convinced that there's a bunch of Maddies out there. And I think that that's evident when you watch basketball in general. There's just not a bunch of dead-eye shooters. And Maddie's more than just a horse shooter. Like, she can make shots off the dribble. She's got a mid-range game. When she gets frustrated and her shot's not going in, then you'll see her soft bank shot from the block or her floater down the middle of the lane. So this is not just a three-point shooter. This is someone who has worked and perfected a craft. And I don't know. I don't know that there's many out there. I know she opens up that floor and allows Jamira to do what she does and Imani to do what she does and DJ and Tan and all of our other perimeter players. And I think that that's what makes it so much fun to watch her play, and I'm sure to play with.
She has mentioned her biggest challenge was on the defensive side. How's she grown in that department?
I can imagine, because I told her, I said, you don't get to stand out there and shoot threes. You gotta guard somebody. And she tried from the very beginning. But no matter how hard you try, there's skill that comes along with being a good defender. And I think that what we are looking at now is she's gotten more deflections already in this season, probably 4 or 5 games ago, than she had last year altogether. So you're looking at a more confident defender, someone that doesn't feel like she's a liability. So we've done our best to inject her with that confidence because she's athletic enough, she's quick enough. It was just a matter of focusing on it. And I even gave her an out last year and told her, you'd probably be shooting better if I wasn't making you defend. And I apologize, but you're going to have to do both. And credit to her, she figured out a way to do both.
Heading to Fort Worth, everything's up for grabs. We talk American Athletic Conference Tournament next.
You're watching the Katrina Merriweather Show, presented by Chick-Fil-A. Let's take a look at the AutoZone road ahead.
Onward to Fort Worth, here you come, and this could be the most competitive postseason tournament of all time.
Yeah, I don't know how any of it is going to play out. And I think that what we're just focused on is obviously one game at a time. You can't look ahead. And I think that where people get lost is if you play a South Florida close, you just keep talking about getting to that championship game. Well, there's no championship game if you don't win your first game. And so hopefully we can just carry some momentum into the tournament and concentrate on one possession, one game at a time.
Can a good showing help you in a bid for postseason play otherwise?
I think so. I think that, it's going to take some work, and I would imagine that we would have to get to that championship game, and you have a lot of factors at that point. But yeah, I think we have a decent body of work for sure, and I think that this team has done everything they can to put us in that position.
That was tonight's AutoZone Road Ahead. AutoZone, America's #1 battery destination and official sponsor of Tiger Athletics. Get in the zone, AutoZone.
There's 3 or 4 teams, including our Tigers, that could win this. It's heavy at the top of the American. We'll put a wrap on this one in just a minute.
You're watching the Katrina Merriweather Show, presented by Chick-Fil-A.
Thanks so much for joining us. Our next show is in about a month, and then we'll take a look at the entire year.
The game is on.
The Katrina Merriweather Show is presented by Chick-Fil-A. We didn't invent the chicken, just the chicken sandwich. And by Simmons Bank, the official sponsor of women's athletics. This copyrighted telecast is an exclusive presentation of Learfield under the broadcasting rights granted by the University of Memphis. Reuse of this presentation is prohibited without the expressed written consent of the University of Memphis and Learfield.